Do you know one of America's richest women gave everything to Christ, leaving comfort to serve the forgotten? What faith turns inheritance into missions and status into sacrifice when racism hardens laws and wounds communities daily? Eucharistic prayer birthed schools, dignity and hope. Humble courage followed. This is the story of Saint Katharine Drexel. Before beginning, drop an amen in the comments, like this video, and subscribe for more stories of the saints. Don't forget to share it so others may discover this story and be inspired to live holier lives. Chapter 1. Social and ecclesial context in the United States at the end of the 19th century. In the decades following the American Civil War, the United States struggled to heal its deep wounds. Though slavery had been abolished, racial prejudice endured, shaping daily life and public policy. Poverty weighed heavily on newly freed African Americans, especially in the South. Many communities lacked education, protection, and opportunity. The promise of Reconstruction faded, leaving divisions that would mark the nation for generations to come. During this period, the so-called Jim Crow laws took root across many states. These regulations legalized racial segregation in schools, transportation, housing, and public spaces. What had once been open hostility hardened into structured injustice. Separate rarely meant equal. For countless black families, discrimination was not an exception, but a daily burden. Inequality was written into the law, normalizing exclusion and denying basic human dignity. At the same time, Native American tribes endured forced displacement and cultural suppression. Government policies sought to assimilate indigenous peoples, often through boarding schools that forbade native languages and traditions. Lands were confiscated, treaties ignored, and communities fractured. Many tribes were pushed into poverty and isolation. Their spiritual and cultural heritage was treated as an obstacle rather than a gift, leaving deep scars on the American conscience. Religious life was also complex in this era. The United States was predominantly Protestant, and anti-Catholic sentiment remained strong in many regions. Catholic immigrants from Ireland, Germany, Italy, and Eastern Europe were often viewed with suspicion. Convents and churches were sometimes targets of hostility. Catholics were accused of divided loyalties. In such an environment, living one's faith publicly required courage and perseverance. Yet the Catholic Church in America was growing rapidly. Waves of immigrants filled parishes, and bishops worked tirelessly to establish schools, hospitals, and charitable institutions. Religious sisters played a crucial role in educating children and caring for the sick. Still, resources were limited. The needs of African Americans and Native Americans were immense, and missionary efforts among them often lacked personnel and sustained financial support. Several congregations of women religious dedicated themselves to education and social service. They opened parish schools, orphanages, and academies across expanding cities and rural settlements. However, few communities were founded specifically to serve Black and indigenous populations. The gap between the Church's universal mission and its practical capacity was painfully evident. Entire groups of people remained underserved, waiting for sustained and focused pastoral care. It was into this divided nation and growing yet stretched church that God quietly prepared an unexpected instrument. In a wealthy household in Philadelphia, a young girl was being formed in faith and generosity. She would inherit not only a vast fortune, but also a restless heart, attentive to injustice. Providence was at work, shaping a woman who would one day transform privilege into mission. Chapter 2. Family, Education, and the Seeds of Charity. Katharine Drexel was born on the 26th of November, 1858, in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, and was given the name Katharine Mary Drexel. She entered the world surrounded by privilege, yet also by a strong Catholic heritage. Her family belonged to the city's social elite, but their faith was not ornamental. From the very beginning, Providence placed her within a household where wealth and responsibility would always be intertwined before God. Tragedy marked her earliest days. Her mother, Hannah Langstroth Drexel, died just 5 weeks after giving birth to her. Though Katharine would have no memory of her biological mother, the loss quietly shaped the family's story. She grew up aware that life is fragile and that love often carries sorrow within it. This early shadow would later deepen her compassion for those who suffer loss. Her father, Francis Anthony Drexel, was a respected international banker and a man of disciplined faith. He believed that wealth was a trust given by God, not a possession to be clung to. Though firm in business, he was gentle in charity. He taught his daughters that financial success meant little unless it served a higher purpose. His example planted in Katharine a sense of stewardship rather than entitlement. The wider Drexel family also embodied enterprise and civic responsibility. Her uncle, Anthony Joseph Drexel, founded what would later become Drexel University. He combined financial acumen with a vision for education and advancement. Growing up in such an environment, Katharine witnessed how influence and resources could shape society. Education, philanthropy, and faith were not separate worlds but threads woven together in daily family life. After her mother's death, her father remarried Emma Bouvier, a woman of deep piety and practical charity. Emma did not limit compassion to polite sentiment. Each week, she personally distributed food, clothing, and assistance to those in need, often welcoming them directly into the family home. Young Katharine observed these encounters closely. Charity, she learned, was not abstract generosity, but a concrete, personal act of love. The family resided at Street Michel, their 90-acre estate in the Torresdale section of Philadelphia. Though spacious and elegant, the home was not closed to the suffering. The poor knew they would find help there. Within those walls, refined culture coexisted with humble service. Katharine received an excellent education, yet alongside literature and languages, she absorbed the gospel lesson that true greatness bows before the needy. As she grew older, family travels widened her horizons. During a journey to the western United States, she encountered the harsh realities faced by Native American communities. She saw poverty, neglect, and the erosion of cultural dignity. These were no longer distant reports, but living faces before her eyes. Something stirred deeply within her heart. The seeds planted in childhood began to awaken into a missionary longing. Chapter 3. Discernment and the Call in Rome. As a young woman, Katharine Drexel did not wait for religious vows to begin serving God. While still a laywoman, she generously used her considerable inheritance to support missions among Native Americans and African Americans. Schools were built, chapels restored, and struggling communities strengthened through her quiet assistance. Yet even as she gave abundantly, she sensed an inner restlessness. Philanthropy was generous, but her heart longed for total self-gift. During these years of discernment, she received steady spiritual guidance from Bishop James O'Connor, a trusted family friend who later became Vicar Apostolic of Nebraska. He knew firsthand the hardships endured by indigenous communities in the American West. Under his direction, Katharine deepened her prayer life and learned to listen attentively to God's voice. He gently challenged her to seek not only what was generous, but what was obedient. In 1886, carrying her missionary concerns to the heart of the Church, Katharine traveled to Rome and was granted a private audience with Pope Leo XIII. Kneeling before the successor of Peter, she asked him to send more missionaries to serve Native Americans in the United States. Her request was sincere and urgent. She desired laborers for a vineyard she had come to love deeply. The Holy Father listened with pastoral attentiveness. Then, with fatherly simplicity, he replied, "Why not become a missionary yourself?" The question was brief, yet it pierced her soul. What she had imagined as a call for others was suddenly revealed as a personal invitation. In that moment, her future shifted. The responsibility she sought to place in other hands was now entrusted directly to her. Returning home, Katharine entered a profound period of prayer. Accepting this call would mean renouncing marriage, family life, and the refined social world into which she had been born. Suitors and society expected her to assume a prominent role in elite circles. Yet Christ was asking for something greater. Gradually, she surrendered dreams of status and comfort, choosing instead a hidden path shaped by sacrifice and trust. In 1889, after careful discernment, she entered the Sisters of Mercy to prepare for religious life. The transition from heiress to novice was not romantic but deeply humbling. She embraced the ordinary rhythms of community life, obedience, and service. Still, within her heart grew a conviction that God desired a new foundation, one wholly dedicated to those most marginalized and overlooked in American society. On the 12th of February 1891, that conviction became reality. Katharine founded the Sisters of the Blessed Sacrament for Indians and colored people. The title itself revealed her Eucharistic center and missionary horizon. She desired that Christ, truly present in the Blessed Sacrament, would be adored and known among Native and African American communities. Her discernment had matured into a lifelong vocation of courageous, sacrificial love. Chapter 4. A nationwide mission of education and evangelization. In 1891, after founding her new congregation, Katharine Drexel professed her perpetual vows and became the first Superior General of the Sisters of the Blessed Sacrament. From that moment until 1937, she guided the young community with maternal firmness and spiritual clarity. Her leadership was not administrative ambition, but loving responsibility. She desired that each sister be rooted in Eucharistic devotion and ready to serve wherever the need was greatest. Katharine did not merely offer symbolic generosity. She gave away the greater part of her vast inheritance, estimated in the millions of dollars at the time. What many would have guarded for comfort and prestige, she surrendered for Christ's mission. Her wealth became classrooms, convents, and chapels. She understood money as a tool, not a treasure. In relinquishing it, she gained a deeper freedom to belong entirely to God. Under her direction, more than 60 schools and mission centers were established across the United States. From the rural West to the segregated South, her sisters opened doors where few others would go. These institutions provided not only literacy and skills, but dignity and hope. Catholic faith was taught alongside academic subjects, forming both mind and soul. Education became a path toward healing communities long neglected. In 1915, responding to the urgent request of Archbishop James H. Blenck, Katharine extended her mission to New Orleans. There, in a city marked by racial tension and inequality, she opened an educational institution for Black youth. The decision required courage and perseverance. Resistance was real, yet she remained steadfast. She believed that every child, regardless of race, deserved access to quality education grounded in faith. A decade later, in 1925, her vision expanded even further with the founding of Xavier University of Louisiana. It would become the only historically Black and Catholic university in the United States. For Katharine, this was more than an academic achievement. It was a statement of faith in the intellectual and spiritual gifts of African American students. Higher education became a sign of confidence in their future leadership. Her charity reached beyond the borders of the United States. After the Spanish-American War, she offered financial support to Mother Loyola and the Dominican sisters in Cuba who cared for Afro-Cuban orphans. These children, often overlooked because of their race, found protection and education through her generosity. Though she never sought recognition, her compassion crossed oceans, affirming that the Church's mission knows no national boundaries. Such work did not unfold without hardship. Catherine and her sisters faced prejudice, threats, and even violence for serving people of color. Some opposed her efforts, unwilling to see racial barriers challenged, yet she refused to respond with bitterness. Strengthened by prayer before the Blessed Sacrament, she persevered calmly. Her courage was quiet but unwavering, rooted not in politics but in the Gospel's demand for justice and love. Chapter 5. Final Years and a Holy Death. In 1935, after decades of tireless leadership and missionary expansion, Katharine Drexel suffered a severe heart attack. The illness was sudden and sobering. Her once vigorous strength began to decline, and her physicians warned that she would need lasting rest. For a woman accustomed to building schools and guiding sisters across the country, this limitation was a hidden cross. Yet she accepted it with calm surrender. By 1937, recognizing her weakened condition, she stepped down from her role as Superior General of the Sisters of the Blessed Sacrament. The decision was not forced by disappointment, but shaped by obedience and humility. She entrusted the congregation to new leadership, confident that the work belonged to God, not to her. Letting go became her final act of governance, a quiet testimony of spiritual maturity. She withdrew to St. Elizabeth's Convent in Bensalem, Pennsylvania, where she would spend nearly 20 years in contemplative prayer. The woman who had once traveled widely now embraced enclosure of a different kind. Her days were marked by silence, spiritual reading, and intercession for the Church and her beloved missions. Though hidden from public life, her influence deepened in unseen ways through prayerful fidelity. Even as her body weakened, her devotion to the Eucharist remained unwavering. The Blessed Sacrament had always been the center of her vocation, and now it became her constant companion. She spent long hours in adoration, offering her physical suffering for the people she had served. In the stillness of the chapel, she continued her mission, believing that grace flows most powerfully from Christ present on the altar. During these quieter years, the wider Catholic community began to recognize her extraordinary contributions. Between 1938 and 1943, she received several honors, including the Discernment Medal and the Siena Medal for her service to Catholic life in America. Though she accepted these distinctions graciously, they did not alter her simplicity. Public praise meant little compared to the hidden joy of belonging completely to Christ. On the 3rd of March 1955, at the age of 96, Katharine Drexel peacefully returned to the Lord. Her long life, marked by sacrifice and perseverance, concluded without drama but with profound serenity. Those around her sensed that they were witnessing the completion of a vocation lived faithfully to the end. She died as she had lived, trusting, prayerful, and quietly united to the heart of Jesus. She was laid to rest in Bensalem, Pennsylvania, near the convent where she had spent her final years. Pilgrims soon began to visit her tomb, drawn by gratitude and hope. The fragrance of holiness seemed to linger around her memory. Though her earthly voice had fallen silent, her example continued to speak, inviting future generations to unite contemplation with courageous charity in the light of Christ. Chapter 6. Veneration, Canonization, and Spiritual Legacy. After her death, devotion to Katharine Drexel continued to grow quietly among the faithful. The first miracle attributed to her intercession concerned a teenage boy, Robert Gutherman, who suffered from a severe and chronic ear infection in 1974. After prayers were offered through Katharine's intercession, his healing was sudden and complete. The Church carefully investigated the case and later recognized it as the miracle that opened the path to her beatification. A second miracle further confirmed the Church's discernment. In 1994, 2-year-old Amy Wall, who had been born with profound congenital deafness, was brought by her parents to pray through Katharine's intercession. Medical expectations offered little hope, Yet, in a manner that physicians could not explain, her hearing was restored. This extraordinary healing was accepted as the miracle required for canonization, affirming God's continued work through his faithful servant. On the 20th of November 1988, Katharine Drexel was beatified, and on the 1st of October 2000, she was solemnly canonized by Pope John Paul II. During the canonization Mass in Rome, the Church proclaimed her a saint for the universal faithful. The recognition was not merely an honor, but a declaration that her life reflected heroic virtue and deep union with Christ. Her hidden sacrifices had become a luminous testimony for the whole world. She holds a unique place in American Catholic history. Katharine Drexel was the first woman born a citizen of the United States to be declared a saint. Her canonization highlighted not only her personal holiness, but also the missionary dimension of the Church in America. Through her, the universal Church acknowledged that sanctity flourishes wherever faith is lived generously, even within the complexities of a modern nation. Today, she is honored as the patron saint of racial justice and of philanthropists. Her life reminds believers that charity must confront injustice and that generosity must serve human dignity. She did not advocate division, but reconciliation rooted in the gospel. By placing her wealth at the service of marginalized communities, she demonstrated that true stewardship reflects Christ's own self-giving love for every person. In 2018, her mortal remains were transferred from Bensalem to the Cathedral Basilica of Saints Peter and Paul in Philadelphia. There, pilgrims can pray near her tomb in the heart of the city where her life began. The translation of her relics symbolized a return home, yet also a broader invitation. Her witness continues to draw visitors, seeking courage to live their faith with conviction and compassion. Her spiritual legacy endures as a harmonious union of Eucharistic devotion, education, and social justice. For Katharine, adoration of the Blessed Sacrament was never separated from service to the oppressed. She believed that Christ encountered in the Eucharist must also be recognized in the suffering neighbor. In this unity of contemplation and action, she offers the Church a timeless path to love God deeply and to defend human dignity boldly. Chapter 7. A Prayer to Saint Katharine Drexel. O Saint Katharine Drexel, faithful daughter of Jesus in the most blessed sacrament, we turn to you with trust and gratitude. You listened courageously to God's call and gave your whole life in loving service. Intercede for us now, that we may seek Christ above all things and follow him with undivided hearts, generous and steadfast. Teach us to love our Lord in the Holy Eucharist as you loved him. May we approach the altar with reverence, gratitude, and deep faith in his real presence. Form within us a contemplative spirit that finds strength in adoration. Help us discover that every mission of charity must begin and end before the Eucharistic heart of Jesus. Help us to recognize the dignity of every people and every race. Open our eyes to see beyond prejudice and fear. Where society divides, teach us to build communion. May we encounter Christ in those who are different from us and learn to honor each person as created in God's image and redeemed by his love. Grant us generous hearts in the use of our possessions and talents. You surrendered great wealth for the sake of the gospel. Inspire us to share what we have without hesitation. Free us from attachment to comfort and status. May our resources become instruments of mercy, serving the poor and strengthening the work of the Church. Sustain all who dedicate themselves to education and justice. Encourage teachers, missionaries, and advocates who labor quietly for a more humane society. When their efforts seem unnoticed or opposed, remind them that faithfulness matters more than applause. Through your example, may they persevere with courage, patience, and trust in God's providence. Pray that the Church may unite contemplation and action in harmonious balance. Guard us from activism without prayer and from prayer that avoids responsibility. As you showed, authentic devotion to Christ must overflow into loving service. May every parish, school, and community become a place where Eucharistic worship inspires concrete works of mercy. Through your powerful intercession, Saint Catherine, make us instruments of God's peace and justice. May we stand gently but firmly against injustice, always guided by charity. Help us to reflect the light of Christ in our families, workplaces, and society. Lead us toward holiness, so that our lives too may proclaim the gospel. Amen.